Hi, I'm Kay Witt, and welcome to the Lily and Glass Workshop Part 1. Transfer your drawing to a light gray or white sheet of pastel mat, about 11 by 14 or 12 by 16. And after you've done that, we're going to start applying color. I'm going to put in the base coat with Unison Yellow number 9. That's what I'm going to add first. I'm placing it carefully, and then we're going to blend it. I'm being careful to go around the stamen of the lily, applying my yellow. Now, after I've added this yellow, I'm going to use this little applicator made by Soft Tools to blend the yellow and smooth it into the paper. We need to have a nice smooth base on our pastel mat to add other colors. So I'm just carefully blending this in. And these little applicators work really well. If you don't happen to have any of these applicators, you can use your fingers, or you can also use a Q-tip. You can clean the little applicator by wiping it off on a towel to get the excess pastel off. This yellow that I'm using is the medium value and color of the object we're painting, which is the flower. So we're going to go lighter and darker to get the three-dimensional effect of the flower. So we're going to start with the medium value of our object when we paint. Now I'm adding more color, more of the base coat color, to the front petals with my Unison Yellow number 9. If you don't have a number 9, get a color close in value to that. This is a very vibrant color, which is one of the things I love most about Unison. And here again, I'm blending with my little tool all of the yellow into the paper. We want to fill up some of that tooth so that we can add more color on top. Here I'm using 296 NuPastel Salmon to add some of that orangey color that you see in the center of the flower. I really want that to vibrate in my painting. I can also use this to add the edges of some of our petals where we'll go back in later and make it darker. Here again, I'm also using the 296 Salmon. You could also substitute 226 or 266 NuPastel and blend it carefully with your applicator. I want to add this color around in between the stamens of my flower so that they show up. I want, it's very easy when you're using a smaller object, get around those areas. I'm also adding color in the cup of the pastel of the lily and blending it with my little applicator. I'm using a 670 Corbitello pencil to outline the stamen. I'm using my 266 NuPastel to deepen the red in the center of the lily. I think it's one of the things I like best is the way it just glows red when the light is coming through it. And so I want to portray that. So I'm going in between the little stamen and carefully outlining them. I'm using my applicator to blend the red into the yellow that we put down already. I'm using the NuPastel because they're a little bit softer than the pencils and they have a lot of color in them. If you don't have them, I feel certain that you could use Carbothello 310 pencil and it would work very well as well. Again, I am using the 670 Carbothello to continue to deepen the values there. I'm back to working on my stamen again. Still using my 670. I'm darkening the tips. Taking my time doing this. There's a lot going on in the center of this flower and I want to get it right. Now I'm using my Carbothello 645 to put a little shadow on the darker side of the stamen. Especially on the top edge there. Let's use our pencils now to add more depth to the flower. This is Carbothello 221, which is a nice orange color, and I'm using it to go upwards and outwards from the center. This is a brighter orange. We added red, now we're going to add some orange to make the center of this flower glow. Keep darkening the values using your 266 red or your pencils and blending with a little applicator. I'm switching back and forth between the browns, the 670, and the orange to 221. All pencils now on top of the layer of soft pastel that we put down. Now this is the 221. I'm going in between the stamen, adding a little more yellow in there. There's actually a flower fold there that you can see in between the stamen. So I'm adding a little more color there. Work back and forth between the colors you have to get the look you want. Using the 215 or the 221, they seem very similar, but they are different colors. And I'm using the browns, the 645, to deepen the shadow area on that particular petal cast by the light. I'm painting the stamen with 221, which is an orange color, but we're going to highlight it with 692 after we get it painted. We're probably going to need to add some shadows as well. So now I'm highlighting it with 692. That works really well. I'm continuing to add the stamen with 221 and then highlighting them with 692. I can also darken in between them with 670 to create a little more depth and help them to show up. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm using my Carbothello 310 to add a little more red, make it a little more vibrant. I go back and forth between the values and the colors, increasing it just a little at a time until I get things as dark or as bright as I want them to be. I'm using my 221 orange pencil to add more color. If that's too bright for you, you can use the 215 or the 692. Both of those have nice subtle color variations that you can add to this flower. This is the 266 NuPastel, making it a little redder. And then I'll use my applicator, my little sponge applicator, to blend that color in there. I know it seems like I keep doing the same things over and over again, but you really have to build up your values gradually so that you don't overdo it. And it's harder to take it away than it is to add it. So I'd rather use the gradual approach. And using my 221 Adding more orange in this area. This petal is underneath the two other petals, so I'm going to put that separation in and start to shape this flower a little more. Now I'm adding a darker value to our lily, which is yellow number 7. It's a more orangey red color than our base coat, and I'm blending that into the previous layers. Place it carefully in between the stamen, and we don't want to go all the way to the edge. It's a beautiful vivid orange color, looks really great in their vibrant color. Continue to add darks with your brown Carbothello pencils, your 645, 670, and 675. This is a little Tombow eraser. I'm erasing the stamen, getting some of the color off of it by using this little tiny eraser. If you have one of those, give it a try. I was very pleased. Another way you can do it is to take a teeny tiny Q-tip. I know some artists have those, and you can dampen it and take color off with that. That's another thing about pastel matte. You can remove color that you don't like simply by using something wet. So I got a little bit of those, that color off of those stems, and I'm adding more dark. This is actually a Derwent Dark Sanguine, which is a nice pencil. I like Derwents. Derwents are softer than Carbothellos. So Carbothellos are hard. Pitt pastels are hard. Derwents are softer, and Conte pastel pencils are very chalky and leave a lot of residue on your paper. But they have some really good colors. Still adding red. It's not as red as I want it to be yet, so I keep adding more red. And here's my fistful of pencils that I've been using going back and forth on this project. Now it's time to add some brighter color, some lights to our lily. For that, I'm going to use a Unison Yellow number 10, and I'm just stroking in that bright. Look at how that brings it to life. It's just gorgeous. I love that. I'm always following my reference photo, staying close to that, adding my color, and then I'm going to blend it. I cleaned off my little blender really well on a towel, And now I'm just adding this bright, gorgeous yellow color. I'm blending in the edge of that bright color with the 221 orange. And now I'm adding some light ripples in that petal there with the light Carbothello 692. The Carbothello can get places that the Unison sticks can't. And then I'm darkening that little area, modifying that petal with the 221 Carbothello. This is the 310, adding just a tad of red there in that little area. And some 692. So we can add details on top of these unisons with the pencils on pastel mat very easily, which is a lot harder to do on sanded paper. I'm using 692 to add some striations in the petal, in that back petal. That looks very nice. And now I'm going to add a little bit of shadowing with the 670 on the edge of that back petal. So I'm using the 670 very carefully and blending in on the very edge of that petal. And I'm modifying that, making it a little more orange with the 221. Here I'm using a Conte lavender pencil. I believe the number is 29. Now the reason I'm using lavender, I'm just kind of trying it out. I'm trying to show you guys all the processes I go through, is because lavender is the complementary color of yellow. But I'm not sure that this is the best one to use. But I'm going to add a little bit and see how it goes. When you add a complement to your painting, what it does is since it's a complement, the two colors together make a gray. But it's better than adding a gray pastel pencil. But it can also tend to muddy up your painting. So you have to be careful when choosing a shadow color if you're using a complement. Still going back and forth with different colors of pencils, bringing the value up, making decisions. Now I'm going to add some 221 here on the edge of this petal to separate it from the front petal. Just taking my time. I'm also adding it to this back petal. I'm going to brighten the edge up there with the 692 and separate the petals. I'm darkening this area actually with a Derwent pale violet color. I'm trying different violets to see if it's going to work there for me. This is a Derwent 300. Ultimately, this is the color I'm going to stick with. It is pale ultramarine, but it has kind of a violet-y kind of color. So it's going to work. In the shadow area better than the other colors that I tried. I'm adding more of our bright yellow, which is unison number yellow 10. Seven. Down in the center of the lily. I'm using this Derwent 300 everywhere where there's shadows. Now I'm back to the 266. I'm just not happy with it's not quite getting red enough. So I keep adding more red. There's a ruffled edge there, so I'm very careful to go around that edge. And as the flower begins to curl under, there's also a bit more color right on that edge before it goes over into the light. And I'm going to smooth that with my finger. There's quite a bit of pastel on the paper now, and it's easy to blend it and easy to get the details that we want. Can't get the red I want, so I've decided to use a unison bright red and add a little bit there and then modify it with my 266. So see, I can move the color out into the petal and see if I like that before I add any more to it. And I do like it, so I'm going to add some more red in between the stamen and in the very center of the lily. This is a unison A15 if you're interested in what color that is. It's very bright. So I'm just continuing to bring up the level of red. The Unison worked the best for doing that, and then using our other yellow, which was yellow number 9, and our light, which was yellow number 10, until I get it to look just like I want to. Here I'm adding our middle value, which is yellow number 7, in that area at where the lily begins to turn, and then some of the lighter color over that. Those edges got a little lost, so I'm going to add a little more color to firm them up. I'm continuing with my pencils, my 221, to add details to the petal. A little more light. Now I'm using the 221 right where this petal begins to turn into the shadow. I'm going to color all the way down. Also going to color this area which is underneath the petals, which joins the stem of the flower. And this is my 300 Derwent pencil I'm using to create shadow, and I'm also using it right where the lily petal curls. So the blue and the orange complement each other, and it creates a nice gray that causes the petal to turn into the shadow. So these are things to keep in mind when you're painting. Still using this 300 ultramarine right where that turns. I'm darkening that a little bit with one of my browns. And darkening down to the very tip of that petal. I'm using the 300 Derwent to add a little shadow on that petal. Be doing that very lightly. Adding a little orange with the 221 to bring some color into that area. I don't want it to get too gray. I'm using my 670 pencil to warm up some of these areas. I can add that over the blue to warm it up and also to continue to add shadows on this petal of the lily. Continuing to work back and forth with my 670, my 221, some of my other colors, just deepening values, adding details to the flower. It's always good to stop and step back and look at it, adding a little blue, deepen that shadow. Don't get carried away with the blue. I've said it before, but it can get too gray on you real fast if you're not careful. Continuing to add some lights with the light yellow, some red with the 266, and some orange with the 221. I think I'm just about ready to call the flower finished. Always comparing it to my reference photo to make sure that I've included all the details and have it as realistic looking as I want it. Join me on part 2 of this video series to see me do the stems and to finish the bottle that's underneath the flower. Thank you for tuning in.